Meeting to order. I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion to, oh, go ahead.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair will say as well. We also need an approval of the minutes from October 3rd, if you had a chance to look through them.
I'd make that motion.
Second.
Then moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on any public matter that is not on the agenda of the meeting and is within the jurisdiction of the Teachers Retirement Board. However, the board may not take action on any issues raised unless it's included on the agenda and public comment has been allowed. If issues are raised that would require board action, the issue would need to be included on the agenda for a future meeting. Public matter does not include disability applications or contested cases and other adjudicative proceedings. And there is no public, so.
There is a,
We have a-
gentleman online, but I don't know if he has anything or not.
It's from the retired teachers.
Retired teacher, okay.
He mentioned he wouldn't be coming.
Oh, awesome, thank you.
We can't-
We know that Dan Villa is on his way, so we're gonna move on to the executive summary. Before we get his report. Happened to me this week twice, somebody wrecked in front of me and then you're slowly
Yeah.
pulling into the school when the kids are walking, and you're like, well, that's a bonus.
Yes.
I did text somebody and say, hey, the kids started. Don't let them have a party.
Yeah, once they get rolling.
Let me just pull up the packet and I'll share my screen. Let's see. See if I'm stalling for Dan. Sorry.
Can you see that, Dee? You're on mute, Dee. I can't hear you.
Oh, that's still, we're in December, geez, please. Hang on, sorry. December,
I'm glad it's not just me.
yeah, we're getting off to a great start. We're web, okay. So we are gonna go here. Okay, Dee, can you see the board packet now?
I can, yes, thanks.
All right, we really don't even need to fill that, but I'll pull it up anyway. All right, so Madam Chair, members of the board, the executive summary behind tab 4 in your binder. The first thing is staff update. We did advertise and fill the newly reclassified retired payroll benefit officer position. Since our last board meeting, Katie Allen joined our team on November 10th, and Katie actually worked for Great Falls Public Schools in the payroll department for 18 years. So we're happy to have her on board, and her training is going well. As far as the operations update, we have been doing the TRS 101 and Ready Set Retire webinars. There were 4 101 webinars scheduled, some of which have already been completed, September 16th, November 18th, December 3rd, and January 7th. And then 5 Ready Set Retire webinars, which were scheduled September 17th, October 8th, November 19th, December 10th, and January 8th. And I think Darla has some updated numbers for us on the number of attendees at each webinar. But as a reminder, this year we decided to just do webinars and only have a physical presence at the MFPE annual conference, where we did do the 101 and Ready Set Retire presentations there. And the reason for that was attendance was so low the last couple of years at our in-person meetings that it just didn't make sense to have the expense and, people out on the roads to meet with 4 or 5 people.
Mhm.
So Darla, do you want
I'm coming up to the microphone because I have a cold and my voice is not very good. Anyway, so, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Lexi Newcomer, our communication specialist, has been managing all the webinars, which was super helpful to me. And then just on Wednesday night, she did her first presentation. She did
Okay.
TRS 101, did a great job. So that's the most recent one. The total numbers for TRS 101, there's been 3 sessions, as Sean mentioned. That's about 81 people total have attended. But Ready, Set, Retire, which is usually the bigger draw, there have been 3 as well, and we have had 108 attendees. And Sean mentioned we went to the educator conference in October and just did 1 session of each instead of staying overnight and doing 2 different days. And attendance was still very
Low at that.
very low, maybe a dozen in each session. So
to?
it's just an update on that. Any questions about the webinars?
All right, thank you.
All right, item number B, mass meetings. These are the Montana Association of School Superintendent meetings. I have been able to schedule my attendance at each of those regional meetings, including member Elliott's region. He's the president for his, and the dates are all listed there. So I'll start in March and end at the Western Mass in May of all next spring.
So we'll be the guinea pig, the first.
Yeah, you'll get
First one out of the
first, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so I'll be with you in Great Falls on the 3rd and then Billings on the 4th. The next item, the State Administration and Veterans Affairs Committee met on November 17th. I presented the results of our July 1, 2025 actual evaluation to the committee and answered questions they had about the valuation. Since there is no interim pension specific study, I don't think that I'll be back in front of them until we have the results of our experience study, which we will get in May from our actuary. So there wasn't, there were very few questions regarding the valuations, and the committee seems to be satisfied with, what they've learned about the systems over the last few interim. Board of Investment update. I'm scheduled to present the results of our evaluation next week to the Board of Investments on December 10th. So I'll go over there. Or actually, it's going to be a Zoom meeting only. But I will make that presentation to them on the 10th. And then the LFC is due to meet on December 18th. And depending on the outcome of a football game tomorrow, I'm supposed to be on vacation I won't be available on the 18th. And if that ends up being the case, then Jim, our chief legal counsel, is prepared to go present our results to the LFC.
And it's in Florida, right?
If we
That's
win,
what
if Tech wins, we go to Palm Beach, West Palm Beach, Florida. And if they lose, I'm going to Mexico. So we'll see.
Well, take in that sunshine for all of us, Sean.
Yeah. So hopefully they win. I can reschedule the vacation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right. So cool.
Yeah, I know. We're all rooting for it. All right.
So
Want to maybe do the investment reform?
I can.
Or do
I
you want to
think
do
maybe-
training?
Well, if Dan shows up though, because we could stop the administrative business probably when Dan gets here.
Yeah.
Should we maybe jump to administrative business?
Sure.
And then I was thinking that member Trost would do his report after Villa was here and he'd just say, yeah, what Dan said, but.
Yeah.
So,
How about what Dan's gonna say?
there you go.
Yeah, I'll go very quickly since we know we're gonna get a good deep dive here soon. We've got a meeting next week, so I guess I'm reporting just generally on results. Things have been very, very good. Dan will let you know. We're well above our actuarial hurdles. We did a very deep dive into the asset allocation process with all the directors and our contractor, RDK. I wasn't able to attend, but I talked to Dan and some other folks, and it sounds like it was really good. It was educational for folks that didn't have as much of an investment background, so it wasn't a huge deal that I wasn't there. I wish I could have gone, but one thing that it came out of that, actually might have been a little bit before that too, the discussions about it. We are going to look at putting in a secondary benchmark for private assets. Right now, we use small cap public, and it's not a great fit. I think in the very long run, it's a decent fit, but in the short run, it's not, because private assets don't reprice every second like public small cap does. And so you get these lag effects one way or the other. So we're still going to use that, I think, for for asset allocation purposes, but as we look at results, we're going to have a secondary benchmark to say, okay, well, here's why it's a little different. It's because of this lag.
Oh.
The trick there is that private assets is a really wide asset class. And what we have is pretty specific to us. So finding a benchmark that's good is going to be tricky, but we're going to try. That's always been the rub on that one. So yeah, results have been good. Some might say too good. With US equities here, a lot of excitement still around AI. We had a little dip a couple weeks ago, and then investors jumped in and bought the dip, which is what we've seen the last several years. So lots of excitement. We do think AI is a game changer, but maybe investors are a little overexcited at this point. Perhaps, I don't know, but I did look and just to get an idea of what percentage of our assets are in big tech. And because about 27% of the cap funds are in domestic equities, that's essentially the S&P 500. There's small cap in there too. Right now, tech makes up almost 40% of the S&P 500. So it's a little bit under 10%. So we're still in it, but it's not, if that takes a backseat for a while, it's not a huge deal. And what we've seen really in the last few months, maybe even a couple quarters, is that small cap, international, and value are starting to see a rotation a little bit from tech. So that's what the rest of our domestic equity is. And so if that's what happens, if tech slows down, but those funds go into the other sectors, we'll be fine. So I'm not overly worried about it, but it certainly is something that we've been thinking about. That's it till Dan gets here.
Yep. No one for the financial statements. Just have to find where we are, sorry.
So we are. We're behind tab 6 in your.
Okay.
in your binder, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're good. Financial statements.
thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm on page 45 here with the balance sheet, and these numbers are as of October 31st. So they're, a little behind, but we weren't able to finish the November month end in time, of course. So so our total investments, I mean, as Member Trost mentioned, everything's up compared to, these are in comparison to October 31st of 2024. So as of October 31st, 2025, the total investments are up about 270 million, which puts our total assets, that kind of drives everything, and our total assets are up about the exact same amount. Obviously, on the one big thing that might jump out to you is those uncleared collections in the liabilities. That's just a BOI timing. If it doesn't clear those uncleared they do certain transactions on our behalf for our investments in Sabres, and it's where these numbers come from, is the statewide accounting system. So they'll, that's why you see that large 24 million. It's just a timing thing. It hasn't worked its way through. So that's kind of the big thing that jumps out, but it's still everything looks good on the balance sheet unless there's any questions. If the year-to-date income, you'll see, even last year we did have a good start to the year, of course. So last year the income was at like 139 million, and this year it's at 122 million. So it's down a little bit compared to last year, but obviously well into the black, so that's good. And you'll see that on the next page 46, is the fund balance statement. This kind of shows, our revenues from contributions and investment revenue. So contributions always kind of continue to go up, or at least historically have. And investment revenue is slightly down from last year at this point, but still, very good investment revenue return. And then the next portion is our expenses, which of course our benefit payments are the biggest portion of that, and they continue to go up at roughly, that same rate. Withdrawals are very similar to where they were last year, and same with administrative expenses, and some of these other ones are very stable. So our total expenses are just a little bit, 5 million higher, and that's all basically driven by the benefit payments. So that's how we get to our revenue over expenses of 122 million as of October 31st, which is really, really good 3 months into the fiscal year. So the next page is just our investment revenue by source and expenses by type. So you'll see that's where, the majority of our investment revenue is just driven by the appreciation of our assets. They're not, the securities gains and losses, I believe that's when we're actually selling, realizing those gains and losses. And it's very similar to where we were at last year, but the investment appreciation is about 182 million of that. So administrative expenses by type, everything's up a little bit. We are sitting about 110,000, a little, more than we, spent at this point last year. Most of that's driven by personal services, but also, pretty much every category. Of course, all of our contracts, with, inflation, office supplies, everything's kind of headed in the upwards. So, but overall, managing it very well. And you'll see that, on the next page, unless anybody has any questions on the financials.
Repairs and maintenance had a big project this past year. Maybe.
Maintenance?
Yeah.
Maintenance and repairs and maintenance,
Went
90
from 600 to 9,000.
9,000.
Yeah, I'd have to look in to see exactly which category or like why that was. I don't remember any like major projects, but I could
I've
get
just
back
been
to you.
dealing with boilers and heating systems.
Yeah, no, we don't.
So I figured
had
maybe
any-
you guys had an issue here in the facility.
Haven't had any major repairs or anything. I could look into why that's 9,000 now and get back to you before the end of the board meeting. So operating budget. So you're gonna see, this kind of projects obviously, so our projected surplus for personal services is, fairly large, and that was mostly because, we had some open positions and those were filled here recently. So, but that definitely gives us a pretty large cushion. And then we have virtually no cushion in the operating expenses. That could change as the fiscal year goes, but it's going to be really close. But we're still looking, overall at a, budget surplus of somewhere in the 150, 200,000. It could be lower than that, maybe 100,000, but I do anticipate a, surplus unless any major unexpected expenses come up, and the board would obviously know about that. So it'd be needing a budget amendment. So hopefully we don't need one of those. So the next page is our contracted survey, which is, our biggest like expenditure category outside of personal services. And you can see just kind of at the bottom there, we're about 33 as of October 31st. We were about 33% through the fiscal year, and we spent 27% so far this year. So we're still under, looking at a surplus a little bit in that category, hopefully. Any questions on any of that? There was no, on page 50, there's no delinquent agencies as of, the beginning of November. I have run that since for the next month, and there's like, one agency that I'm working with. They have a brand new clerk, so we'll get them sorted out, but there's no major issues at all, so. And I believe the next item, unless anybody has any questions about the budget and financials, do you want to jump right to Dan, or do you want to? Oh,
The chair.
Yeah, let's do it.
Sorry.
Won't waste your time. Yeah. We can waste your time, Nolan.
You're the second biggest client. You can't waste time. Good morning, Madam Chair, members. Sorry for being late. Dan Bill, Executive Director of the Montana Board of Investments. Here to give you my biannual investment update, in addition to what Member Trost provides to you every meeting. We'll just jump right into the presentation. Page 2, well, after the cover page, the first page, is the strategic asset allocation. As you've heard me say a number of times, the single most important decision the board makes on an annual basis is that strategic asset allocation. It has been working well for us, and the chief investment officer and the board recommended and then subsequently approved no changes for the subsequent fiscal year, or calendar year, I guess it would be. So we will stay within those ranges. Our pacing is on track. About $450 million a year in private equity, about $250 million a year in real estate, and then domestic equities is what it is. If we could control that, we wouldn't be working for the government. So on the next page, past and expected investment performance is required. As you all know, we had the 9.46%. We have an inception to date of 7.81, again, in excess of the actuarially required 7.3 that you determine with your actuaries. So very happy with those numbers. The next slide is all assets under management. This is our monthly snapshot that I'm sure you get. This shows everything we've got. We're right around $30 billion in assets under management at the current time. These are where they're broken out, who owns what shares of what asset pool. Happy to answer any questions you may have about it, but you can see as I said, the second largest participant or second largest client of BOI, first being your friends in PERS. Investment goals and strategies, no changes there either. We obviously want to achieve highest level of returns with the lowest level of risk and the lowest costs. Long-term perspectives are critical for all of us. We're not making decisions or timing the market. We are definitely in that perpetual fund phase as long as the state of Montana exists. So too will these assets. So that is our time horizon. Next slide is these are, again, just the statutory requirements compared to similar public employee retirement plans in other states. You've seen this slide before. It will be updated again next year. Our 5-year policy return as measured by CEM, they're a third-party independent analysis we bring in every biennium to gauge our performance versus our peers. And the implementation impact. So the implementation impact is what return are you getting based on the dollars you spend and expense for that. So 8.5% is our 5-year policy return, the US public median of 7.7 and our peer median of 7.5. So again, very happy with those numbers. The next slide, we talked about this a little bit last year. That last bullet, despite being 4.8 basis points above benchmark cost, you delivered a 5-year implementation impact of 86.4 basis points. I draw attention to that. It's not the most glowing bullet on the chart, but it is important. What that says is for every nickel in expense we invest, we get 86 cents back. So that is that's why that one is critical, that our implementation impact is a net positive, despite having that small 4.8 basis point excess of our peers. So we're choosing good managers and we're getting results for it. God bless it, capitalism works. If you're very good at something, you can charge a little more. The next slide is fees continue to remain low. 0.27 basis points. You see we're down from 0.33 basis points or 0.33% several years ago. Looking at that the 0.01% increase for last year, that was related to a real estate portfolio and our non-core fixed income portfolio. So those managers have been, or those that the two managing directors of those tools are aware of it. And it's something we're paying close attention to, but still overall 0.27% expense ratio is very, very good for the total fund. Next slide. Obviously, the Growth and Opportunity Fund is something that is important to TRS and PERS as well as the board. This came about as a result of last session. These are invested. Right now, they are invested in the short-term investment pool. So that sort of sleeve 10 there in the middle of the page is where TRS would have access to up to $75 million over 2 fiscal years if the Board of Investments is unable to achieve inception to date returns of the actuarial hurdle you establish for 2 consecutive fiscal years. It's a tall order. As you know, it doesn't count toward your actuarial valuations, but it's definitely that another layer of cushion that's available to us. As that cushion is invested, you'll see that it flows down into other buckets to fund bridges, childcare, water infrastructure, tax relief. This looks like, and I think it could eventually become something like a sovereign wealth fund for the state. Obviously, that's a legislative and executive decision, but the structure and the dollar amounts are certainly there. We'll see what they do. In the meantime, you've got 150 million in reserves. We're investing it, and now those investments are funding bridges, water, tax relief, and childcare.
So Dan, on the bottom there, this 50% reinvested, that actually comes back up to the top and is reinvested into the pension portion and the housing portion, correct?
Into the pension portion, not into the housing portion.
So this right here.
It goes, it
It
goes
comes
up
back
into the
up.
reinvestment.
Yeah.
So the pension piece is self-contained. Anything that doesn't flow down into those other buckets along the bottom is retained in the pension fund. The housing fund, over the last several years, the legislature created a number of coal tax trust housing loan programs. Those were getting below market returns based on the interest rates that the legislature set. So by putting it here in a separate fund, it's under the Board of Housing, but we're able to get market returns for the coal tax trust again. So that's bumped up general fund revenue a little bit and will over the long haul as well. The other piece that's important for that housing is they get to keep their own interest. So it's if they do a 2% interest rate, the amount of money they will have to lend out for those programs over the long haul will grow at 2%. If they establish a higher rate, they'll have a higher growth rate. But it was the legislature's way of saying you can grow your assets as much as you decide to. And it took the onus off the full trust.
So Dan just asked, Sean just asked, but the 50% reinvested, all of that goes back into the pension bucket? Or it goes into the total bucket?
It goes into the pension bucket.
Okay,
Yeah, you can see the line, it's like, well,
Kind of covered by the
okay,
little call out box.
okay.
yeah, so the line comes around, it goes back up.
Yeah. So that's 50% of the 90% of the interest goes back into the pension fund.
50% of the 90%.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Interesting. Where did that come from? Like, I don't know. Is this just
legalized
I was so-
marijuana.
That's what it was?
No,
Okay.
We tried that, it didn't work.
no, I think there's been some interest for a long time in sort of seeding a wealth fund. Montana has resources and has a lot of money that's been OTO. You look at our surrounding states, Wyoming, North Dakota, Utah, New Mexico, other Western states, and Texas, Alaska have these sorts of funds. The coal trust kind of is that, but Montana in the eighties and nineties took a different tact where they spend all the interest off of it and are very risk off. There is no
Yeah.
private corporate capital stock allowed other than in the pension funds and 25% of the state fund. So we haven't been gaining that capital appreciation that the other states have. I think this is at least the seeds of taking that one-time only revenue and starting something longer term. And it's been around for many, many years. There was talk back when Senator Brown and I were in the legislature. Do we do an oil and gas tax trust? Those have always been sort of around. I think this is the first session that it's manifested itself into law. Other than that, I just want to thank your staff. There is barely a day that I'm not on the phone with your executive director and the Impera executive director. Obviously, critical relationship for all of us. We're an investment firm. You're the benefit administration firm, and we just want to make sure we can A, meet your liquidity needs and pay benefits, because then we all hear about it otherwise. But B, we understand your needs and are meeting them. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
I don't have a question, but I would just say that I've been really impressed. It's been a few years now that I've been on the board, and the quality of the folks that we have working there, I think our investment people could be on Wall Street very easily. They choose to be in Montana, which is great for us. They do a fantastic job. And Dan is one of the most organized people I've ever met. He does a great job too. So thank you.
All right, anything else?
Boy, quick. Sorry for the delay. Won't happen next year.
I'll need a road report when you go home tonight.
Fine.
So I know
What
what's
time's the game?
set on,
Okay,
but, all right.
thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Jump back to Nolan. Sorry.
Well, that'd be good.
All right, yeah, so back in October, I went to the P2F2 conference. So I appreciate the board sending me to Phoenix, Arizona. The weather was amazing in the 80s, low 90s the whole time. So it's kind of a little climate shock, but there's always really good networking. So I really appreciate you sending me there. It's most of, obviously my counterparts throughout the nation. And then, of course, there's plenty of directors and deputy directors there too, but definitely the accounting and financial staff of most of the pension plans go. So it's really good networking. And I guess, was a lot of good sessions, and I could talk about a lot of them, but went to a couple different sessions on employer reporting. And I guess what's good for the board to know is that I think TRS has really good policies surrounding employer reporting and our communication. There's certainly more we could do, but I think compared to our peers, they're all dealing with the similar issues that we are, where there's delinquent agencies. And I think we have good procedures in trust. Our pension administration system that we've developed, it is, kind of beyond what most systems have. So I think based on everything I heard from our counterparts, that we are definitely doing a really good job in that aspect. So, but I did get some, good ideas that kind of currently working on, like, possibly posting, like a frequently asked questions for employers and things like that. But generally speaking, we do have the ability for employers to just call in, and we are always getting back to them, which I don't know that a lot of those bigger systems, have that personal touch. So that's really all I have, and I appreciate again the board sending me. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you for going. We also, I went to the NCTR annual conference. So did Dee and so did Sean. It was in Salt Lake City. I always enjoy that conference, just because of the diversity of the people who attend. Lots of investment professionals, lots of, executive directors, CIOs, CEO. I mean, it's impressive. You feel like you're in the room with some really powerful people. I can't remember the woman's name who wrote the book.
Melanie Hobbs.
Melanie Hobbs. Yeah, I was gonna say it's Melanie something. You're sitting there with this woman who's Hobson.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're sitting there in this room with a woman who is just, I mean, powerful and, just so down to earth as well. And they're having a sit down conversation with her in a room full of teachers and investment professionals. I enjoyed what one day at lunch, they had a woman speak about investing in like crypto and all that currency. And the people I was sitting with, a man works right on Wall Street, in New York City, and he was just flabbergasted that they were having this conversation. And but it was so great for me to be sitting there and hearing what she had to say and hearing what it's like, this is, I don't have that perspective as a teacher. And so it is just, I don't know, it's so eye-opening to me. So I always appreciate just being able to see the world through other people's eyes. Yeah. Dee, did you have anything you'd like to add?
I would concur with what you said, Madam Chair. I also am always impressed by the Teacher of the Year, talking with all of us, and the quality of the presenters is always outstanding. This year we had a fellow who was blind, who has overcome his disability, and to have him on the stage talking about the things we can overcome was very inspiring for all of us. And yes, I agree that the people you meet and the topics that are discussed are spot on.
Yeah.
So the only experience I had that was a little different than our two board members was 2 hours of networking on a 2-minute clock with all the vendors, which was very exciting. If you can imagine, I shook a lot of hands and met a lot of people. But I would echo their statements. It's a great opportunity for all of you to go at some point and meet some of your counterparts across the country. The networking piece is really important. And you do get different perspectives. The one day, a lot of it was dedicated to investments, which, besides Member Trost, the rest of us aren't really actively involved in our investments, but it was good to hear from some of them that they are still, even as high as valuations are right now, they're still pretty optimistic about the next year and potentially next couple years. So it was exciting. There was a session on AI. There are a couple retirement systems, and they're very large ones, but they have full-on call centers, and they're starting to utilize AI in their call centers. Not only does it monitor the call, but the way they explained it, at least, that it actually will prompt the person that's in your house, like our employee. It would prompt them on some of the things that they might say based on the question, because it's following along as the conversation's happening live. So they're, pension systems, at least the large ones, are starting to dip their toe a little bit in the AI space. And I think that will continue, certainly, probably in all fields. But yeah, it was a good conference. It was a great facility. It was in Salt Lake at the Grand American. It was a nice conference.
All right. So yeah, thank you for sending us. I would have rather been in Arizona, but kidding. So our next thing is our tentative meeting dates, which are February 13th, May 8th, August 7th, October 2nd, and December 4th.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, May 8th is bold and underlined because last meeting I had it on there as May 1st, because that technically is the first Friday in May, but then that would require Impera to have their meeting the day before that. And so talking with Bill upstairs, if we can set the date of May 8th, they'll set theirs at May 7th, and the actuaries will be here to present the results of both of our experience studies. And it just makes sense for them to travel out here once if that's possible.
I will be in Texas in May at that point for graduation, so, but I could jump online. If that works, I mean, I could do that.
If that works for you.
I'm okay with those dates. May it could change, but we'll just have to wait and see. That'd be a weather thing. Softball.
Should be decent.
No, not where the game is. We're not going there. Where the game is, you can't count it. It could be a foot of snow, or it could be sunny. Yeah, so we'll just wait.
All right, so then this is another opportunity for public comments. We'll put down February 13th for sure. No public.
And so, Madam Chair, I hate to do this, but before we jump into action items, we were scheduled to do the ethics conflict of interest policy review earlier in the meeting. And so I think we should stop here on administrative business and go back to what is it, tab 4, I think, or 5. Yeah, tab 5, and do our board training, because we do have a few small revisions to our ethics and conflict of interest policy that I think you should review before you take action on it. And our policy states that annually the board and staff will go through this ethics and conflict of interest training. So that's probably the right thing to do. And just so you know, Jim did the training yesterday with all of our staff here at TRS on this revised policy.
So would you like me to speak to the changes on the policy before starting the training?
I think we can, well, I mean, it's up to you, however you want to
All right.
go through it, but it's
All right.
redlined, so you can see what has been added or deleted.
Yeah.
And it's behind tab 5 in your hard copy.
All right, well then I'll just walk through what's changed, and then once we're done with the training, we can go forward and, adopt if you see fit. So Madam Chair, members of the board, the policy change we have for your approval is with the TRS ethical conduct and conflict of interest policy. The minor change is that we've added our incorporating the statutory code of ethics upon which this is all built. And then there's been a legislative change to the gifts of substantial value, which are acceptable, and that's gone up from $50 to $100. You'll see other changes in the policy, however, they're clerical and were made to conform with recently adopted numbering conventions, and then just to create uniformity across the other policies as we are cleaning up policies for ADA compliance. Moving on to the training. This is a training that you and all staff go through on an annual basis. I know you're familiar with it. The policy prescribes the standards for ethical conduct and legal requirements for the TRS board staff and any contractors in performing our duties on behalf of the TRS members and beneficiaries. The policy on ethics and conflict of interest is built upon the state ethics policy, and it does not replace or supersede it. The definitions are self-explanatory. The one I want to point you towards, in addition to that change in gifts, is private interest, which is ultimately what this is all about and what you can't consider in performing your duties. The private interest is defined as an ownership interest in a business, a creditor interest in an insolvent business, an employment or prospective employment opportunity for which negotiations have begun, an ownership interest in real estate, a loan or other debtor interest, a directorship or officership in a business, and any other personal objective or advantage. Private interests do not include activities you're taking here as board members for which you're compensated through either through a per diem or the schools that you work. Moving to page 3. The nuts and bolts of the policy. I've condensed a bit of it, knowing that you've all read through it already. But I'll talk about what you shall and shall not do. In fulfilling your duties, you shall recognize your obligations as fiduciaries in conducting TRS business and fulfill them in a fair and honest manner and provide the highest level of service to our members. You must avoid any conflicts of interest or the appearance of any conflicts, including in partaking in business or personal dealings that could impact the performance of your duties. You must fulfill all of your duties with care as informed subject matter experts and seek out the assistance of experts if you need it. You must protect confidential information. If you believe you have a conflict of interest or a circumstance which violates this policy, the law, or your integrity as a board member, please contact Sean or me for guidance. Continuing on page 3, in fulfilling your duties, you shall not use the prestige or influence of TRS or positions on the board, TRS resources, or confidential information possessed by TRS for your own private interests, for those from family members, or any unauthorized third party. You shall not accept money from a third party for performing your TRS duties. Shall not use your position to engage in nepotism or let personal relationships inform your actions. Nor shall you take any action other than fulfilling your official duties to impact oversight duties for TRS or the application of TRS laws. When involved in contested case matters, you shall not have any ex parte communications. And basically that means if you're having communication with one, you have a communication with all. There's no sidebar conversations. You shall not make any statements that could be perceived as official positions of TRS without you all taking official action on it. If it's a personal stance, you must clearly express that. And you shall not commit any acts of dishonesty in the performance of your TRS duties. No fraud, embezzlement, or manipulation of records. Nor shall you violate TRS policy when performing your duties. If you're aware of such actions by any TRS personnel or your fellow board members, you have to report it to Sean or I. Silence is complicity. On page 4, your core fiduciary duties as TRS personnel and board members. First, the duty of loyalty, which means you can only wear one hat, and it requires you to only act in the interests of TRS members, beneficiaries, and the pension trust, not your own self-interest or private interests. All of your actions must be for the exclusive benefit of the TRS members and participants. The next duty is the duty of prudence, which requires you to act with the expertise, skill, and care of similarly situated individuals. If you need the guidance of a subject matter expert to perform your duties, we seek it out like we do with Kavanaugh McDonald and our actuaries. You must make a good faith, honest effort to do the right thing. If a court were to gauge your performance, it would likely compare you to board members at other public pensions. There may be decisions that, based on the information we have at hand, that don't go well. But if we get the best information available and we're making an honest effort to do the right thing, you're protected under the law as fiduciaries. Within the duty of prudence, we have to follow the plan document, which are our statutes and administrative rules. And we have to apply them uniformly to all the members. It can't be, well, this person, it seems like it makes sense here. No, it has to be a uniform application. On page 5, you cannot engage in prohibited transactions, such as knowingly or unknowingly engage in the sale, lease, or exchange of property, or provide services to the detriment of TRS. You can't purchase something for more than it's worth, or sell it for less than it's worth. If we were to make a loan, which is not really within our business operations, it would have to be for a fair interest rate, and we'd have to make sure we got sound security to back it up. If we were to sign on to a loan, we'd have to make sure that it was not for an exorbitant rate. You cannot engage in any self-dealing. You cannot use retirement system assets for anything other than legal TRS business. Again, no helping out family members, friends, or anyone else. Nor can you do TRS business or transact personally with any entity or person whose interests are adverse to TRS. Finally, you can't receive payment from any individual or entity who does business with TRS. Regarding conflict of interest, cannot undertake any activity that creates the conflict of interest or the appearance of. And this is where the gifts of substantial value comes in. Although the legislature has provided that dollar amount, really don't accept any. It's a best practice, and anything could, if you accepted it, could create that appearance of a conflict. Your objectivity and independence to perform your TRS duties cannot be impaired by outside or private interests. If you cannot avoid a conflict, report it to Sean or I, and if necessary, recuse yourself from the activity. On to page 6. We're still over there already. Okay. Conflict is created by any TRS action that could be perceived as self-dealing in the furtherance of your personal private interests, another business or political organization. Some more things we may not do. I've condensed this, knowing you've read it already, but a few I want to touch on. In a nutshell, as we've already discussed, do not undertake any private or consider any private interests that interfere with your duties as a TRS board member. No working with outside third parties that stand to impact your decisions here. No self-dealing, no related business interests. That includes consulting and lobbying. The idea is that outside businesses or private interests should never be contemplated. Doesn't matter if it seems like it would be a positive, win for both. You shouldn't be thinking about anything outside your duties. And then the next thing is you cannot use information you gather here for your own personal benefit. It's like insider training. You can't do it. Finally, within 12 months of leaving your positions here voluntarily, you cannot take a job with any entity that stands to gain from your inside knowledge here, from the decision making that took place. If you left involuntarily, within 6 months, you cannot take a job with any contractor that has an existing relationship with TRS. That covers the policy. Please let me know if you have any questions.
So when you talked about the side conversations, does that include digital conversations? Emails, text messages?
Yes, any communications. Now, if you have a question about a contested case and you're being represented by our partner law firm in those matters where they represent you as the board and I represent the agency, you can have communications with them as your counsel. That's okay. But if we have a contested case and there's a administrative law judge overseeing, if we have a conversation with them, they have to be having it with all parties.
Okay.
Because when we have an attorney, they will call you individually and,
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the Drake Law Firm. I don't think we've had one since you joined the board, but yeah, that's who we work with. When it goes to a contested case, it gets a little bit goofy. The Drake Law Firm will represent the board, and then Jim represents kind of the organization, the system itself. So that there's a little bit of separation of I don't know.
It addresses some due process concerns where if I'm involved in making an agency decision and helping the agency understand things, and then also I'm giving you counsel on that, well, technically you're getting information from two different parties, and potentially agency interests or perspectives might be different than your own.
I think I sometimes run into a challenge with being superintendent of a school district and advocating. I know before I was on this board for something that may not have been in the best interest of TRS. Came up again in the last legislative session, but we had conversations about that.
Yeah.
So I think it's just hopefully just continue that conversation, even if
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like I need something as a school
Right.
district,
Yeah.
but it's
Right.
not in the benefit of TRS.
And there might be times where we have that discussion where we evaluate it and maybe we make note of it and we say, ultimately, this isn't going to interfere with your ability to make decisions.
Yeah.
As a board member.
Okay.
And, I think the final part of the policy that we need to undertake now is the disclosures, and we do that annual questionnaire, which Sean has to hand out to you, and basically, if you have any of these outside or private interests, you would note them on this. The ideal answer to all the questions is no, but if an answer is yes, that you do have some sort of outside interest that you can't avoid, well, you note it on page 4 of the form and sign it. And then ultimately, if it was something that can't be avoided, you recuse yourself. Potentially, we have a conversation with the Commissioner of Political Practices, but that's probably more advanced than anything we're going to run into. And in fact, it's one of the reasons why I think in the wisdom of the legislature, they separated the Board of Investments from the retirement administrations.
So Dee, I'll have this printed and available for you as well as the per diem election form when you attend the next meeting, okay?
Can I sign digitally?
Yeah, I can have, Darla can do that. We'll set up 2 DocuSign documents and we'll email them to you.
Thank you.
Does that work? Yeah, all right, you bet.
Thanks.
We'll do the same for Dan Chamberlain as well.
Thank you. And I could just, yeah, that works too. Thank you.
All government officials sign these things?
They should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
find it funny sometimes, the senators and congressmen and,
Well,
nobody's gonna.
we
give
often
me a
learn about the
gift.
conflicts of interest in the wrong way, but
Yeah. But he wants to really give me a trip to, I don't know, Barbados, private ship.
I bet if someone wanted to make you cookies or something along that, I think you'd be forgiven, but yeah.
So cookies, no cruises.
No
Yes.
cruising, yeah. Unless we're going to the NCTR on a
Yeah.
cruise to Barbados.
Yeah, or
Somewhere.
we're just gold leaf in the cookies. Yeah.
And some pretty nice places, sure. This is all. Do you need me to sign any policy
After we
after we?
go back to administrative business and sorry,
and
we're all
approve it.
kind
Yeah,
of
we're all
disjointed
discombobulated.
today.
Okay.
So the next thing that we're going to do is annually you fill out the board member per diem election form, and that just tells us how to treat your per diem, which is now $100 per day. And basically it comes down to, whether or not we're paying you or if your employers, you make those elections here at the bottom of the page. And I did not print extra ones, so if you don't mind, I can just take page 37 out of your. It's behind tab 5. You can take that out, fill it out, and then sign it. If you have any questions about what those 4 options are, we can certainly speak to those. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that just helps. No one uses that for when he does the what do you call them, the reimbursement forms at the end of each meeting. Let's see, we may end up not being as far ahead as I thought we were gonna be.
Okay,
Are we sending this over to you?
Sure. I'll take those. Thank you. There's 6 sites.
so we are on to the action item. We need a motion to approve the policy on policies, correct?
Yes, and so,
Did I accidentally send my agenda?
I think you did.
oh, right. So let me get to that. Okay, so,
No?
I don't have it. You can have mine though.
You're quick, thanks. I dig it out so I can follow along.
is it in this sector? I don't.
No, I don't have it.
Oh, interesting.
We can get you another one. I think there's some right outside of your.
That one.
That's funny.
I didn't steal it.
It's not quite.
Before you go, you had to steal it.
No,
Thank you, I appreciate it, I'm sorry.
I did the same thing though.
yeah, that's weird.
So maybe before we ask for a motion, or Jim can, but we'll go over the minor revisions that are included in the
Okay.
policy. You'll see, I have it pulled up on the screen here, and it's in your packet. Again, now we're back behind tab 6. So we have, this is the policy on policies, which is kind of funny, but it lays out the numbering convention for all of our policies, in which we discovered that we weren't, just by the timing of when the various policies were adopted over the years, that even though we have this policy on policies, the numbering convention wasn't followed like it was laid out in the policy itself. So even this policy, the policy on policies, needs to be renumbered. So that's one of the changes. Obviously, the
Very important.
revision date is going to change to today's date if you in fact do adopt these changes. And then the rest of this is just all very minor, non-substantive changes to the policy. Some renumbering here on page 2. None of the content though is changing any of the substantive content, I should say. You can see here when we get to policy development, changing the word glossary to definitions like we did previously in the document. And then this is going to, and we have a list of the various policies that need to change, the numbers that need to change, but here, when you get to this is where the numbering convention is laid out. You'll see there are several changes, and those are just to make it fall under the numbering convention that is here. So if you adopt this change to the policy on policies, I have another list here of the various other policies. I'll show you. These are the other policies that we would go ahead and make changes to the numbers themselves in the documents, but we would not come back to the board and ask you to approve those numbers, if that makes sense. On the final page of the policy, there is a little bit more language changes, but they don't affect the meaning of the policy at all. It's just to clean it up a little bit.
Madam Chair, I move we adopt the changes to the policy governing policies and procedures.
Been moved. Do I have a second?
Second,
Is there any further discussion?
do we need to add to that motion that you then will go through and change the numbering to the
It wouldn't hurt.
actual policies?
It wouldn't hurt to then also incorporate these changes that are outlined here.
Okay,
Or D, go ahead.
I move that we accept the TRS policy numbering changes also, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. No, none opposed. Motion passes. We also need a motion for the ethics conflict of interest policy specifically.
I move that we approve the recommended changes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
I,
Chair votes aye as well. None are opposed. February 13th in your calendar for the next meeting date. All right, do we want to just do the break until 10 o'clock?
Sure, I think that's a good idea. So the one thing that we're gonna run into is we are running ahead is that we're fairly certain we'll have a person that has a disability request that is going to come in front of the board, and I believe he's planning to be here at 11:10. So I think that we could take our break now and then start back up at 10 o'clock, and then if we get through the rest of this quickly, we may have to take another break and wait for 11:10 to start our disability discussion.
We could possibly close the meeting and do the two disabilities first as well too, the other two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Possibly
and
do
then,
that, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
So, yeah, that would be great.
yeah.
Okay, we're gonna have a break for about 20 minutes.
Madam Chair, members of the board, on page 66, it's the beginning of my Pulitzer-worthy IT manager's report. Prior years I had, it included like, this is what we're spending money on. And kind of gets updated on that every month, see what, and Nolan has it in his report. So this is more of a higher level, just overview of what IT's, where we're at with IT right now at teacher retirement system. So, start off by just describing that, our IT environment here has remained largely unchanged for, fiscal year 25 or 2025. We did reduce one of our servers, by moving from our source code repository, which is our pension management software and our web resources. We moved them off of Subversion to state's hosted GitLab environment. And so that reduced one of our servers. We recently, we also have moved away from microcomputers to almost exclusively laptops. We've only got two positions that are actually still using microcomputers, and those are our imaging techs who never work remotely, and it allows the scanners to hook up to the microcomputers a little bit better than they do to the laptops. So almost all of our users now are on laptop computers, which allows for remote work. Recently migrated to Windows 11. Any of you that had Windows 10 at home, maybe you're familiar with that, but we had an end of life in October, and Rex Merritt here performed all that work by himself and got it all taken care of, and we're all working on Windows 11 both virtually and on our physical hardware. On my last report, I had two projects listed as upcoming. Both have been completed. One of those was that source code repository migration from Subversion to Git, and that was done in early June. And then the MyTRS member portal, which coincides, which is the portal that our members and employers access to online, was migrated or moved for the active members as part of the website migration that Darla and Lexi did. We moved the active members MyTRS to a fully responsive and accessible format, so it's worked really well on mobile phones. I'm sorry, retired members. We did the retired members. We're currently in the process of doing the active members. So I've got that under the current IT projects. We are well underway on migrating the active member portal to a fully responsive and accessible format. We have a target right now somewhere after the first year, most likely February-ish, I think is what we talked about just this week. And so there's a few more moving parts for the active member portal. There's online withdrawal applications and online beneficiary designation And we're going through those and looking at each of those independently and also making sure that they are fully responsive on a mobile device. But as you guys can imagine, for active members or younger teachers, the expectation that be able to do stuff on their phones high. So I think that'll be well received when we get that out.
And just to add to that, the benefit estimator is another portion of that, and that's a kind of a huge undertaking for, in addition to OWA and or BD, so. Let me know if I can help in any way too.
Okay. We actually may be able to do that, Madam Chair, as part of for our testing regimen. The state, as it's listed in the security section later, has reduced the availability of VPN into the state for testing of the benefit recipients portal. We were able to use VPNs on our handheld devices and to tunnel into the state network and to actually test the benefit recipient portal on a mobile device. That functionality has been removed by the state for security purposes. So we actually did move all of our web server, the MyTRS application servers, we moved them onto the state's web application firewall appliance. And we have the ability to periodically and systematically enable DMZ or demilitarized zone web access to those servers for testing purposes. So we can enable access, test, and then shut access back off. And so that means we could get to a point where we have you access one of our test servers remotely from a mobile device and give us feedback. That would be great. United States Postal Service, we have integration. We've had integration to validate addresses that get entered by us, by employers, by members, to make sure that we get the best USPS certified address when a person puts that in. Their API, application programming interface, is being removed January 25th, as I documented there, and which necessitated us to redesign our applications, both the MyTRS and the mTrust applications, to communicate with the new USPS APIs. USPS went to a new authorization and security, enhanced security on their end. They're using OAuth 2 for accessing those APIs, so it requires some development on our end to be able to actually negotiate and consume those services. That has been completed and is in our testing environment right now. And so we are ahead of schedule to get that rolled out before the January 25th deadline. The TRS report manager migration is a project that we're looking at hopefully being able to get done perhaps as early as spring 2026. And that is the automated process that takes reports that are generated by mTrust and injects them into our content management system. We're currently working off of a legacy API provided by the vendor, and we want to move to more of a current standard process. So we'll be building that out this spring. And the last current project we're working on, which is relatively new, is migration for an identity provider from native mTrust, maintaining our own usernames and passwords for all of our members, which is benefit recipients and members, to moving it to ID.me, a commercial provider of identity verification services. We are currently working with ID.me. We have weekly technical stand-ups and bi-weekly project stand-up meetings. We go through and we're communicating with ID.me to have users authenticate first with ID.me, and then ID.me sends an encrypted payload to teachers' retirement system. We will decrypt that payload and consume it on our end and determine if the person that ID.me sent us is entitled to have access to the MyTRS system, and if so, what access we should grant them. We currently have that proof of concept is working in our development environment. We can have somebody sign into the ID.me portal and get redirected, and we're consuming the service now. We're at a point where we have to do the unencryption of their payload. We're receiving the payload. We're currently working on the piece to unencrypt it, and that requires an upgrade of our Cold Fusion framework that our software runs on. So that's actually just this week. It's taking place right now. We're testing out Cold Fusion 2025, which has native support for the encryption technology we need to consume these packages from ID.me. But that project's well underway, and we're not don't really have an implementation date scheduled, right now. But we're looking at sometime in the spring after, our IRS reporting deadlines. We kind of get through our heavy lift for first of the year. And then we're looking at doing a simultaneous, running both, TRS native login and IDB login side by side so that we don't, require benefit recipients who want to get copies of their 1099s after the first of the year to all, no longer use an old login system, but actually switch to a new one. So we're going to run them simultaneous side by side, at least for a period of time. Before I go forward, any questions on any of those current projects?
The ID me, what, is that a cost? Is there a cost to that?
So Sean will probably be better to describe this, but and a little background, since we have time that I get to kill today, and you guys get to listen to me talk, chuckles. The project with ID.me was something that the state was looking at, state of Montana, as an enterprise identity provider. Currently, the state has a contract with Okta for identity management here. The ID.me opportunity came about 4 or 5 months ago. And we're in a situation where the Department of Labor and Industry had already contracted with ID.me for one of their, I think, an unemployment portal as an alternative identity provider for that portal. Department of Labor and Industry completed their build out of their portal. They're using a vendor-supported ID provider for them, and had purchased a significant dollar value of credits with ID.me, which were about to expire. And Teacher Retirement System, based on the timing, started talks with ID.me, looks at, we'll be able to consume those credits that were purchased by another state agency. So our current exposure for cost, especially for implementation, at right now looks like it's going to be zero. And we will have a per authentication cost when we go into production, that once a year, when a person first authenticates to our system, we will have, like, I believe it's in the neighborhood of $3.
Yeah, and it's actually not even just our system, but the when they authenticate with ID.me, depending on if more state agencies that end up adopting ID.me, which I think is kind of what we're sort of the, in a way, a test case for ITSD as an agency that's going to stand up and use it as our everyday ID verification. But let's say that we adopt ID.me, Department of Revenue adopts ID.me, and Department of Labor adopts ID.me. There's only going to be a cost once a year, and depending on which agency they go to first, that agency will pay the cost. And so for us, based on unique logins over the last couple of years, it could be about, if we ended up paying for every one of them, it would be around what, 25,000 a year. However, your initial account creation with ID.me requires you to upload your driver's license or passport. It requires liveness check. I mean, it takes a lot, really. So that we're very confident the people they're sending us are actually the people that they claim to be. Versus right now, our account creation, if you had all of the relevant information, you could go in and create an account with TRS relatively easy, but you would have to have all that relevant information.
Right.
So it will be, once it's stood up and running, it will allow us then to start doing electronic transactions. Like, there would no longer be necessary to go all the way through the online withdrawal process and print out a piece of paper and take it down and get it notarized and mail it to TRS. Because right now it's almost a fully online process, but not quite.
Right.
Down the road, well, and even benefit recipients, so our retirees, people that are receiving a benefit, currently, we don't allow them to change their address online. We make them fill out a piece of paper and send it in to TRS with a signature on it. Whereas our active member can update their address online. Once we're confident they are who they say they are through this identity verification process, we will roll out, change of address, potentially roll out EFT changes. There's a lot more we'll be able to do online.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. That's not hard.
But it is a cost. I mean, our current Twilio, which is our multi-factor authentication, runs about $5,000 a year. So it's a step up in cost, but it's for all the right reasons.
Well, so Helps with liability too.
Right.
But that's worth the goal. So.
Yeah, thanks for
And I'm sorry, the implementation cost that we averted because of those credits was estimated to be 30,000. So we're getting the full implementation paid for through the contract the state already had.
I was, with regards to liabilities, it seems like from a fiduciary standpoint, going to a national recognized identity provider to verify identity versus relying on something that we built in-house also makes sense. So this will be a good step for us in that direction. The section on looking forward. So the moving that responsibility for identity management and verification to a vendor obviously has should reduce our potential footprint or exposure for fraud. I wrote down that security is a continuous focus for us and for IT in general, but especially here at TRS. I contacted the state's CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, for the information I put here on the security, the key concepts of this current program for the state of Montana. And this is, so the feedback that I put in here was from the state CISO. And that's state security modernization, implementing a centralized security model. So basically the executive order described there was the consolidation of security services particularly for the executive branch under the state IT services division, Department of Administration, but bringing all state agencies under the same security model so that we don't have individual agencies kind of managing their own and perhaps opening up security holes or weaknesses at a single layer that might provide an opportunity, for just an exposure that somebody else could get in and get into the state system and actually access any of the systems on the state. Getting old. On the state, in the state's data center. The current threat environment, you reported that the primary threats facing the state are currently insider threats, AI generated attacks, including deepfakes and sophisticated phishing campaigns. And it was really interesting that the state CISO is currently implementing implementing AI specifically for the task of watching for AI intrusion into the state network. So utilizing AI to watch and protect against AI, which is exactly, it's an interesting concept. And then recent protective actions, blocked international VPN connections in response to active attack campaign. The teacher retirement system, we've always geo-blocked at the web application firewall. We only allow Canada, United States, and access into our website. But the state had a larger exposure footprint for geographical, and so recently blocked some VPN connections. And then he added down there that enforced MFA on privileged accounts and implemented VPN posturing requirements to reduce that threat exposure. That VPN posturing requirement was what removed our ability to use VPN to access in from privately owned devices. I had a Cisco VPN on my phone, and I was able to tunnel into the state network and access our test servers, our development test servers. That's no longer possible. Only devices owned by the state of Montana now are allowed to run a VPN tunnel into the state. So if the state doesn't own it, no way to get in and access the state network, which you can understand from a security standpoint. It did impose a restriction or limitation on us as developers and testers here, but we're figuring out a way to work with that by moving our application on the firewalls that allow us to expose them on a one-by-one, case-by-case basis as needed. Looking beyond this fiscal year, AI is a current hot topic for IT, and TRS will investigate ways to leverage available AI technologies. Montana recently created an Office of Artificial Intelligence, and we have a new CAIO, Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer, he did provide this information. It was 7 weeks from that he had been on the job when I obtained this information from him. And he had provided the prevailing legislation or rules governing AI in Montana. Include Montana's approach to AI is anchored in the Right to Compute Act, SB 212, which affirms Montana's rights to own and use computational resources, including AI technologies, limits government interference except where demonstrably necessary. Specific state laws also govern the use of AI in government, requiring agencies to disclose AI use in public-facing systems, prohibit manipulative or discriminatory applications, demand human review of AI-generated decisions. HB 178 was referenced there. Also rules against unauthorized synthetic media and deepfakes, especially relating to elections and personal likeness. And the state of Montana's AI strategy is to take a pragmatic and innovation-friendly approach while prioritizing workforce and public safety. And it's cited the governor's executive order from August, directing agencies to actively integrate AI for workforce development and partner with educational institutions to expand AI training and readiness and support for small businesses in adopting AI tools. Seems to be, economics focus there, business related focus there. None of that directly describes or provides direction to the retirement system on how we may or start to look at utilizing AI, but it's something that we have on our radar. As you heard at the conferences you attended and at the conferences that we all attend, AI is a hot topic. I don't right now have any kind of a roadmap, something I can say this is what we're really looking at. I think we're going to have to wait and see, and I think we're going to have to wait and see what the state's posture continues to develop for AI. I know that there are some state agencies that have acquired and are utilizing some AI tools here at the state. A lot of that has to do with helping to develop and to scour existing documentation to be able to provide concise and summarized reporting and from existing literature, especially agencies that have lots and lots of that. I think AI has been, they're seeing that there's been a benefit for them. Questions? No, I'm only 20 minutes in, so I mean, if not, then thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Don.
You're welcome.
Another opportunity for public comment. And looking ahead to strategic planning.
All right, Madam Chair, members of the board, as you know, this is a relatively new strategic plan. We just adopted it in August. There's not a lot of updates to the commitment worksheet. The updates I did make are in red font. The first one there was to make the TRS website responsive.
You see.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. Yeah, he could come in. And as you know, the website itself is fully responsive at this point in time. And what's up there for the most part is section 508 compliant. The reason I still have it as underway with completion by end of the fiscal year is because of the work that John mentioned regarding the member portal for both active members and benefit recipients, which that work is all underway and should be completed in early spring. I think we have a February implementation date set for right now to roll out the active member portal. So that was one update. If anyone has any questions on anything else, we can certainly look at that, but I think I can move on to the next page. Another one of our strategic commitment worksheet issues was to pursue identity verification and e-signature options to improve member convenience. And you heard from John, that we have actually, entered into a contract with ID.me for that purpose, and development is underway. We are going to roll that out in a phased implementation where anyone that's brand new will have to set up an ID.me account and come in that way. Anyone that has an existing username and password will have the option to continue to log in the way they always have for some period of time until we phase it out. And then at that point, everyone that accesses our member portals will have to come through ID.me. And so that should all go smoothly. The one concern we had is we didn't want to roll it out in February and then have all of our benefit recipients that are accustomed to logging into the system and downloading their tax documents, have them end up in a position where they were unable to do so and panicking. So we'll wait until after kind of the tax season to implement that for those folks. No other updates on that page. Oh, sorry, there is one more. So related to succession planning, we have a thing we have a sentence in here about cross training and then documentation of retired payroll processes specifically, just because we are aware that our retired payroll supervisor is likely to retire in the next year or two. And so this retired payroll documentation is a priority for us. And I can let you know that is underway. We had talked about potentially needing a contractor for that. And then the more that we talked about it as a management team, it seemed to make more sense, at least initially, for Jim to kind of spearhead that project. And it serves two purposes. It will familiarize him quicker on our actual everyday processes that are related to retired payroll, which is important in his role with TRS. And he has the bandwidth right now to sort of organize that information, get the content where it needs to be. And then obviously we have a communication staff that can help us put that in a format that's going to be reusable. So we basically end up with kind of a template of sort for the rest of the systems that we want to document that way. So that is also underway. And we're hoping to have it mostly complete by the end of this fiscal year, by June, but it may go into the fall a bit. I don't have it. I've not been told a retirement date for sure, but it's likely not that far out. So we need to get after that. Those are the updates. I'm happy to answer any questions, or we can discuss any of the other items on the commitment worksheet if the board would like to do so.
Great. Other opportunity for public comment? And we're on to the applications and benefits adjustments. Tammy?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, since our last meeting, we processed 42 retirees with an average time pay of $6,332.68, average monthly benefit of a little over $1,300, average age of 62, a little over 62 years, and average years of service a little over 15. So slowing down from the summer months, which is our busiest time of year for retirements.
That was interesting just to see how long people work.
Right.
All right. We also have now legal counsel report.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we have no pending legal issues at this time.
Good news. And so should we handle this? Should we close the meeting for our disability, or do we want to do? I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, we should close the meeting for our disability benefit. Mr. Fuller's here.
Okay.
So Dave Severson, I will put you into the waiting area and we can let you back in when we reopen.
Open the meeting again, and we need to vote on our disability requests. We will start with Kevin Schooler.
I move that we table this decision for this meeting and request with our physician our contracted physician group to ensure that they've reviewed all appropriate information and that the appropriate physician reviews everything, whether it's existing or new, before we make our final decision.
And Mr. Schooler, I would ask, you have copies of both the reports from MMRO and you see their recommendations of, additional things that you can do. Can you please maybe reach out to your providers and see if there's some things that they can provide to us to fill in those gaps that might help in the interim, and then I can submit that information to MMRO in addition to the request for a comprehensive report.
There are no gaps. I've already reached out to the providers. You have everything.
Okay. All right.
I second the
And I-
motion, Madam Chair.
I don't think tabling it's a good idea.
Well, the motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes.
So what does that mean?
So that means that we will, because of the fact that the second review, the second report was filled out by an orthopedic doctor. And we know that you submitted additional psychiatric information based on what you said this morning. We are going to get confirmation from MMRO, and our board has asked that they combine those two reports into a comprehensive report instead of two separate reports, and that they reaffirm that they've reviewed everything, which means then that we will get this matter up again at our February meeting. Rather than have a vote today that may go against you, and then you would be subject to an appeal right away. By kicking it till February, we make sure that our provider did everything they were supposed to do. And then the board would vote in February. If it's a disapproval, then you would still have the option to do an appeal after that.
So I need to come back in February?
You can come to the meeting via Zoom. You don't have to be here in person. We can provide you a Zoom link, and when we close the meeting, we can close everyone else out of the meeting except for you. You would be able to be online while we're discussing your case. Then we would, lock you out for a short period of time while we review the other ones, and then let you back in, the same as what we're doing today in person.
So I have no choice except to wait until February.
Yes,
Correct.
And what does that mean for me and my benefits?
Well, ultimately, if your benefit is approved, you will be paid retroactive back to the
Yeah.
first month following your last day of work. So in totality, it wouldn't affect the amount you'll receive, but it will obviously affect the timing of when you receive that.
Now, I guess, will I have the opportunity to talk to MMRO? Is that going to be something? Because like I said, I spoke to them the first time, not the second time.
Yeah, I think that's what Tammy was speaking to you about, was during this interim, because now we'll have a couple month in between. If you have a copy of their initial report that describes some of the gaps, which we're on the record, so I'm not going to get into your actual case or ailments, but if you can if you have reports or, physicians that can look at that report and address some of those concerns, then yes, you could speak to MRO. You could provide additional information to MMRO, and we would take it up in February.
Okay.
Okay.
right. We also need a motion for Richard Hagbert.
Move approvals.
One second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor indicate all those in favor of approving the disability request for Richard Hagbert indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. And I also need a motion for Janelle J. Barr to approve the disability request.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Right.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. So disability applications are finished. Public comment is open. Right? And we will adjourn the meeting. I need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Hi,
Aye.
Sorry, who moved
Merry
that?
Christmas.